Hey, this is episode 272 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Dancing for Diabetes, Omnipod, and Dexcom. You can go to dexcom.com/juicebox, myomnipod.com/juicebox, or dancing4diabetes.com to find out more about the sponsors. And if you have trouble remembering any of those web addresses, you can always go to juiceboxpodcast.com or click on the links right there in the show notes of your podcast player. This is kind of fortuitous. I'm messaging with one of you right now as I'm recording this. So I'm not going to give last names or anything like that. But one of you is letting me know about their two children, siblings, who started 3 months ago with an A1C of 7. And today they got their A1Cs back 5.9 and 5.8 respectively. Maeve has had type 1 for about 2.5 years, while Aiden has had type 1 for 2 years. And they're doing great. Their mom was just letting me know how excited she was, and she said she wanted to shout it from the rooftops, and I told her to go outside and yell, don't worry about the neighbors. But then I thought, you know what? I'll help you shout from the rooftops. We'll do it right here on the podcast. So Maeve and Aiden, congratulations. Great job. All right, I'm running out of music. Today's guest is Drew Holder. Drew has had type 1 diabetes for a very long time. He was a professional baseball player. And I thought this week with the World Series coming up, what a great time to talk to somebody who used to play. Please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise, and to always consult a physician before becoming bold with insulin or making any changes to your healthcare plan.
My name is Drew Holder. I've had type 1 diabetes since age 3. I've had a lot of different experiences through the highs and lows of diabetes. I've been able to play professional baseball, be a husband and a father, and now a working professional.
So you were diagnosed in what year, do you know?
1986.
86. And how old were you again?
3 years old. I was just after 3, I got diagnosed.
Wow. You called me sir a second ago, which now I'm going to leave in. And I thought, how much older could I be than you? But I believe I graduated from high school in 89. So we can keep the sir thing going a little. I'm just kidding. Drew,
I will.
No, please. I'm joking. But I'm so interested. You reached out and your note was very I'd like to be helpful if I could be. And if I could share something interesting, I would love to. So I was really excited because I have a ton of questions for you.
Oh, thank you.
Let's start a little slow. How did you find the podcast?
Man, I think it was by chance. I think I just looked at on Apple Podcasts. I always think about diabetes and what's going on, and I think I just searched type 1 diabetes and your podcast popped up, and I started listening. I listened to a podcast with Jeffrey Brewer. I like what he's doing a lot with Bigfoot.
Yeah, me too.
And then I listened to Chris Rudin, just because of his background in working out, and then hearing about your daughter. And, obviously there's common ground. I think we all feel that as kids or adults with type 1. I think it's just such an easy conversation starter.
Yeah. And it's difficult to find people who have this in common, really. I mean, it's not just easy to, you don't walk into the gym to meet people and, somebody just pops up. It's like, I have diabetes. Where do you, I hear from people all the time who say that this podcast is their only connection to people who have type 1. They just don't know anyone in their personal life. So I'm glad you found it. I really am. And I'm glad.
No, thank you.
I'm glad I got it set up correctly in the searches. So, all right, you diagnosed at 3. Let's go there for a second. Parents together?
Yes, sir. My mom, funny enough, was a nurse, or still is a nurse, but she was kind of in denial. I would sit there at the faucet and drink glass after glass of water, go to the bathroom, come back. And this probably went on for, I think they said 3 weeks, but my grandfather saw a article in the newspaper in Austin, in the Austin American Statesman, about symptoms of type 1 diabetes. And he was like, hey, to my parents, hey, you need to go get him checked. So finally they took me in, and my mom knew all the signs, and then finally my glucose readings were off the charts on the glucose meter. I mean, I think it read just HI. So then they knew, okay, well, let's treat it now.
Have you ever spoken to your mom about it? Do you think she just was trying to prolong what she knew was coming, or did she just trying to work up the nerve, or what do you think it was?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, now that I think as a dad, I mean, I'm so quick to, think the worst, but still hope for the best. I think that's just where she was. Like, man, I hope he doesn't have diabetes. Let's just keep seeing if it gets better,
Oh, for sure. Listen, we're a couple of generations removed. My father would have been like, he'll be okay. Just tell him to keep going.
That's right.
Yeah, so I see that. Okay, so 3 years old, 1986. When's your first real recollection of your diabetes? Like when you think back on it, what age do you get to?
Man, good question. Honestly, I think it was probably around, anywhere 8, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I don't remember anything, or not obviously, but I don't remember anything before age 3 or life before diabetes for me.
Drew, I burned my finger at my 5th birthday party, and if that wouldn't have happened, I don't remember my life till I'm like 12. So I'm just wondering, like, when does it come into your consciousness enough that you remember as an adult? So that's interesting. That I think too, for parents who are worried sometimes that their children are being horribly impacted by this disease. You see that a lot. People are very concerned about it, probably rightfully so. But at the same time, I think I always try to share with them the story that, Arden probably had 10,000 injections when she was little. And then we switched to a pump when she was like 4 years old, maybe getting closer to 5. And it took a few years before we ever had to pull out a syringe again. And when we did, she didn't even know what it was.
Wow.
And that's that kind of the message I want to leave with parents. Like, I know you feel like you're doing something that's just going to, run your kids over forever, but really we don't remember anything. When we're little, like, how much do you remember really? So
yeah, that's such a good word. You're right.
Yeah. So you have a G6, you told me in your email, but do you pump or are you injecting?
Yes, sir. So I injected for 20 years. So from age 3 to basically 22, so I guess 19 years.
Okay.
And then I got on my first insulin pump, and then I've been kind of on insulin pump therapy with, a few breaks here and there, but for the past 13 years,
okay,
insulin pump.
Okay. So now,
and I have a tandem pump now.
You're using a tandem now. What have you used? How many different ones have you used over the years?
So I had a Cosmore. Most people probably don't even remember that, but that was my first pump. And I was actually when I started professional baseball with the Astros, mm-hmm. and they made me kind of a spokesperson, or I would travel around, speak for them.
The pump company did back then.
Yeah, I think it was Cosmore. I can't even remember. I think it was a subsidiary of Animas or Johnson & Johnson.
You're gonna make me look while you're talking, but I think it's Cosmo, right?
Yeah, Cosmo.
You keep talking. So you worked with them a little bit, kind of traveled around telling people about the pump?
Yes. And then I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I upgraded to the Animas. Had that for, 5-6 years, and then finally just upgraded to the tandem.
You went to the tandem now. This is so interesting. The Delco Cosmo. You should see this website. Well, it looks like it looked durable. So it looked like it was built well.
Dude, it was made out of a helmet, like baseball helmet. Like, so if I dropped it, it couldn't break,
Yeah, that is really my first thought when I looked at it. I was like, wow, it does look really durable. Like it just like you could have thrown it against the wall and it would have been okay. So tell me something. Like, what age did you start playing baseball? Do you remember that?
6 years old.
And right into like little league or local ball, like in your town?
Yeah, yes, sir. Just the local. We call it Town and Country in Austin. I played one season of T-ball, and then, went through all the different age groups going after that.
Do you remember? So you've hit on something that I'm really interested in, because my son's a freshman in college right now playing baseball. So my son started playing when he was 4, and it was he's a February birthday, And my wife was like, he wants to start playing baseball now. And I was always like, oh, Kelly, he's like 3. Like, how do you know what he wants to do? And she's like, well, look how good he is at it. He should try it, you know. And I was like, Kelly, I think you have to be 5 to play baseball. And she's like, no way. Like, he'll be 4 when the season starts, just because he's 3 now. And so my wife basically, I was spouse bullied into contacting the local YMCA. And I said, look, my son will be 4 when the spring starts. Is there any chance he could start playing this year? Because my wife seems really intent on this happening. And the guy's like, let me see him play. And if he looks like he won't get hurt and everything. And the guy's like, yeah, sure, let him do it. So I don't know how many people know this. And, we're going to talk about diabetes a lot today, but we're going to talk about some baseball too. But it's not really baseball. But first, this is exciting for you, Drew. You don't even realize, but it's time for Arden. It's time for Arden's lunch bolus, which people love to hear about. So today is day 1 of her new G6. So she's had it on now for about 12 hours. It's looking pretty right with the blood. We did 1 finger stick today and it looked right, so I'm going to trust it. Her blood sugar is 131. We're going to do a temp basal increase. She's got a pretty big lunch. I'm going to go 70% for an hour and a half. And so what that does is it adds about 2 units of insulin over the next hour and a half just through basal. And then we're going to do a bolus. All right, Drew, hold on a second. Banana, popcorn, half a sandwich, yogurt, peaches, grapes. All right, ready? 3 for the sandwich. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say 12 units. Extend.
I like this because I'm looking at my pump now and I'm able to adjust my readings too.
60% now, and the rest over a half hour. So my idea here is it's a pretty mixed lunch, right? There's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in there, but there's also some fruits. So there's simple sugar. There's not a ton of, beyond the bread with the sandwich, there's not a lot of real kind of like heavier carbs. So I'm going to get a lot of the insulin in now to kind of combat, get a nice pre-bolus going. Hopefully she'll start eating in about 10 minutes. Maybe I can get her, 120-ish, like moving in that direction. And then I like the insulin to have a nice momentum. Like I like it. I want it to be out in front, right? And
I agree.
So when those simple sugars start hitting, hopefully we can hold them at bay, use the temp basal and the extended bolus to spread out the insulin a little more over the meal. And hopefully, we'll see where we go. We'll find out in an hour, Joe. So my son starts playing baseball at 4. He's played every year absolutely since then. He loves... Oh, hold on a second. Now she's telling me. Hold on 1 second. She got to lunch quickly, more quickly than I expected her to. So they must have sent them in early. So now I've told her to kill the extended bolus. We're going to throw in all 12 units right now because she's sitting at the table. Oh, jeez. Okay, Drew. It'll still work out. Don't worry.
What's her insulin to carb ratio?
Oh, Drew, I have no idea. I don't pay attention to that. I don't count carbs. I look at the meal and I think that looks like 12 units to me. And,
yeah, that's kind of how we did it growing up too.
Right.
I mean, we had no...
Well, you didn't have this gear, right? So you're just...
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're guessing, right? How does it change having glucose monitoring from not? Like, what's the biggest difference?
Oh, man, I don't know. For me, that's like the biggest deal. Just to know where you are at all times. I mean, I had 6 diabetic seizures growing up, like I guess through my life. I even had one in college, but just the roller coaster of the highs and lows when I gave shots, that's the big difference for me is the CGM basically is telling me, am I going up, going down? And now with the tandem, it actually shuts off if I'm diving in the middle of the night, which sometimes I tend to do because of whatever happened during the day.
That tandem has that. It's called basal IQ, right? It if it feels you going down, it just kills all your background insulin and shuts everything down for a while.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's pretty damn handy. We are having a cluster here today with Arden. She's like, but I already did the extended one. So I'll tell her to stop it and tell me what delivered. So yeah, I would say that variability that you're talking about, like the up and the down and the bouncing, that's not only just hard on your body, but it creates, I always say highs cause lows, right? And you get high, you start bolusing, and then boom. Tell me what delivered one. Oh, okay. Not much went in. So only a unit went in. So now she's going to put in the other. We canceled the extended bolus. She's going to put in the other 11 units, and we're all set. All right, Drew. Anyway, okay. So we're jumping around a little bit here, but anyway, we'll track Arden's bolus and see how that goes as well. So what I was going to say is that people might not realize that, I know the numbers for my son, but I'm sure they're very similar for you. The year my son Cole started playing baseball, 4 million children picked up a bat in the United States for the first time.
Wow.
Little league, local, like that whole thing. There's 4 million kids that year started playing baseball. This past year when he went to college, 9,500 of them moved on to play college baseball. And that's across 4 divisions, the D1, 2, 3, and JUCO it includes, right? So obviously, to get that far it involves more than you can imagine, right? And I don't just mean hard work. I mean, sometimes luck, your body doesn't break down, your skill holds up, like all these things happen. But the leap then from there to a minor league baseball player is down to something like, I think 3,000 of those 9,000 make it to that next step. And then only hundreds actually ever step into a major league ballpark. So I'm going to ask you a few questions around that.
Sure.
When you were younger, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, were you any good? Did anybody look at you and go, that Drew, he's going to play in college and then go on to be a pro?
Honestly, probably not. God definitely blessed me with athletic talent. And I was always, to be honest, 1 or 2, top 3 guys on the team, but I don't think anybody, and honestly, I didn't become a great baseball player until probably my junior year of college. Okay. So I was kind of a developmental guy. My true passion was football. Honestly, I played football through high school, but I'm not the biggest guy. I'm 5'11". I weigh about 205 pounds. Yeah. But when I realized that the beating my body would take with football, I'd have to put on some weight to play college, and then the way it would tax me more with the diabetes, I chose baseball. And I got a scholarship offer to Dallas Baptist University, and I was just blessed to be able to play at that great university.
And it still took you at college 2.5 probably seasons until you came into your own?
Yes. Until I really felt like I belonged and I felt confident. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of went from there. Obviously you mature a little bit, you get bigger, you get stronger. But yeah, even as a freshman in college, I remember looking around like, man, these guys are huge. I don't belong. My confidence wasn't 100% there. Yeah. But just staying the course and working hard, like you said, and just kind of, and then opportunities arise, and you take advantage of them.
Yeah. I'm going to share that. So my son doesn't have diabetes. My daughter does, but Cole, my son Cole it's interesting. He probably weighs about 170 pounds. He's a freshman in college and he's 5'11". And Drew will know what I'm saying when I say this. My son's actually 5'11". He doesn't tell people he's 5'11". He's 5'11". So baseball's big on adding an inch or 2 on people's height. Because once you get in those spikes, everybody looks 6 feet tall and it's hard to tell. But so my son's 5'11", but he's about 170 some pounds. And he's a spectacular outfielder. There's just nowhere you can hit the ball where he won't be. If you put the ball in left field when the left fielder's catching it, my son's standing next to him. If he's at the fence, it's 400 feet, it's in a gap, it's over his shoulder. He makes it look like he just flipped the ball to him in the living room. It's amazing. I don't know how he sees the ball that way because he's a talented runner and runs fast, but he's not like a 6'5" kid. You know, like he just knows where that ball is going. So he is also a really good student. And when he was recruiting for college, my wife and I just said, look, we're happy for you to play. We definitely want you to, but you have to go get like the best education you can. Like, you know, like you absolutely need you to go to the best school that you absolutely can. And that ended up being a D3 school that really fit him the best. So in his mind, you know, as a high schooler, he's like, this is amazing because it's just D3 and I'm going to show up there and they'll be so thrilled that I'll be there. Like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, 2 days into practice, I text him, how's it going? He goes, the kid playing center field in front of me is a senior. And if he wanted to kill me, he could pick me up and break me in half. And I said, okay. He goes, yeah, I don't think I'm going to just be like wandering onto the field announcing my arrival and starting to play anytime soon. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. Right. And it's interesting, isn't it, that people think of it as these divisions, right? If you go to D1, you can play. And if you go to D3, you can't. And if you go to D2, you're not smart. And if you like, there's just too much generalization around sports and baseball and the assumptions that people make. Like just for you, I mean, you got drafted. Drew, when you were a minor league baseball player, and to this day, you are one of the most talented baseball players in the world. And even if you never take another step past minors, it's an amazing accomplishment, you know? And yet in our society, anything that doesn't get to the whatever the very top is, the rest of that is considered a failure. And I never kind of can wrap my head around that. It never makes sense to me, but I wonder if it doesn't make sense to me because I have the perspective of watching my son do it. But anyway, it's a lot of talk. I just want people to understand, because I know a lot of parents listen to this, and the best player when they're 9 isn't necessarily the best player when they're 15, and it definitely doesn't mean they're going to be great when they're 21, and it's a long, long process. And I want to talk a little bit about, maybe I want to talk a lot about the lessons that diabetes can teach you and the lessons that baseball can teach you. And I want to know how many times you found those to overlap. Okay, let me see how long this takes. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Okay, I am on Dexcom.com/juicebox. A lot of information here about 0 finger sticks, glucose readings right on my smart device, customizable alerts and alarms. Here, get started with the Dexcom G6. Can you get started with the Dexcom G6 in less time than an ad on the Juicebox Podcast? Patient's first name, put my name, last name, did that, email, phone number, city, zip code, month, day, year of birth, type 1 diabetes, insulin pump, insurance private, I agree, next. Oh look, that's how long it takes to get started with the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Less than 2 minutes to change your life? I don't see how you don't give it a shot. Go to Dexcom.com/juicebox, fill in the information, get started with the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor so you can see the direction and speed of your blood sugar. There is nothing more important in my opinion. You could do it right now while you're listening. It's that simple. Less than 2 minutes to get started. Dexcom does so much so you don't have to. Before we get back to the show, allow me to remind you that the 19th annual Dancing for Diabetes show is on November 9th, 2019 at the Bob Carr Theater. That's in Orlando, Florida. Go to dancing4diabetes.com. There's links in your show notes. When you get there, go to Newsroom. Click right on the 19th annual Dancing for Diabetes show to get more information. I see this stuff that my son learns from baseball is not always the stuff I thought it was going to be. You know, like for instance, he called me the other day. And again, Drew will have more of maybe a perspective for this than some other people, but my son can stand after he's warm and have a catch with you at 120 yards. If he's got one pro tool, it's probably his defense and his arm, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, but he doesn't want to pitch. And he's like, I don't like pitching. I don't want to pitch. I don't like the mechanics of it. And so I said to him one day, I was like, how long do you think you're going to stand throwing the ball 60 yards farther than everybody else while you're warming up? And someone's not going to ask you to try to pitch, And right, like eventually someone's going to be like, can we drag that kid's butt up on a mound and see what happens when he throws the ball at the plate? So he goes over he sends me a text. He's on his way to practice and he's like, oh my God, they're going to make me throw a bullpen today. And I was like, well, just do it, like whatever. And a couple hours later, I get a text back from him and he said, I had an 88 mile an hour fastball. My changeup was 81 and I was dropping my curve in for strikes. And I think I'm going to have to pitch a little bit now. And I told him, I said, why didn't you just throw the ball into the ground and go, I told you I'm not good at this. But he's just too competitive. And in the moment, he didn't want that. And 4 days later, he's like, it'll be okay. Like, I'll just, this will help me get on the field. Like his mind, he is so much more mature than he was 9 months ago before he got to college. And I don't know what that is. So I guess I want to ask you, like, what does it really take to hit a roadblock in baseball and push through it? Like when you have that feeling of like, my God, I'm not good enough, or these guys are so much better than me, or whatever it is. Do you have some stories about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general for me, just being coached my whole life. I mean, I love coaches. Without all the great coaches I've had, I would probably just not been able to develop, obviously. But a lot of things we said at Dallas Baptist was day by day and just try to get 1% better every day. So instead of focusing, I should be starting right now, or, I'm better than this guy, we'll focus on what you can control and let the rest take care of itself. So if I just focused on what do I need to do to get better today? And for me, I was an outfielder just like Cole. And and that's the thing I miss the most. Honestly, I don't miss necessarily hitting as much as I thought I would. I still miss it, but I miss tracking that ball and catching, an awesome line drive that the competitor hit. I mean, that's what I miss. I miss tracking that baseball and trying to not let it hit the ground, and throwing somebody out at third or home. Those were exhilarating moments.
It's so interesting that you say that because when, I think Cole was 11 and he told me one day, he's like, I'm going to get really good and play the outfield. He's like, it looks great. And he's, I could see people looking at baseball from the other side and going, oh my God, it's boring. You stand around out there. What if the ball doesn't come out? Blah, blah. I watch my son is moving and intent on every pitch for years. He loves being an outfielder, and he would get into a car after a game. They'd get shellacked, like they lost 10-2. You think he's going to climb in the car and be, absolutely mortified. And he's like, hey, back in the fourth inning, what made that kid think that single was a double? And I was like, I'm like, right? And he goes, yeah. He's like, I had him by like 3 steps at second base, or catching a ball in a gap and then throwing a runner out at third who thinks they can tag up and get to third. He is so just jacked up by that. It's incredible. It's a very specific mindset, that idea of like the ball's not going to hit the ground. And to go back to what you said, I've heard people ask him like, how do you take something like this so seriously when you're younger and really want to do it? And he said, I've heard him say, he's like, I used to play for a man who was the outfield coach on my little league team, and I just never really wanted to let him down. And that was the first way it hit him as like a 12-year-old. There was this nice guy named Frank, and Frank put a lot of effort into him, and he thought catching that ball was his responsibility. And I just, it's such an odd thing that you would never expect for a 12-year-old to build some sort of a relationship with a grown man who's, just trying to help out in town. But that ended up meaning a lot to him. And I don't know, now today I think he's more, he's kind of type A, but he's competitive with himself more than with the game. I don't know if that rings true to you. I think that's a sentence some people don't understand, but
yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree. Like even in diabetes, I'm competitive. I mean, I don't want my numbers to go above my range or below my range. One of the most irritating things about diabetes to me is when my blood sugar goes high. Like you said earlier, it takes so long for it to get back down that you're like, hurry up. You give too much insulin, then you bottom out, Yeah. So it's the same thing with baseball and just being competitive. But yeah, I competed with myself a lot, but also forced to always compete against the other team or the other pitcher, you know?
Now, I love too what you said about like trying to get 1% better every day, because I was standing at my son's high school one day for a baseball game, and a parent came up, you know, a few innings into the game on this field where there was no scoreboard. And she comes up to me and she says, what's the score? And I thought for a second, I looked at her and I said, I don't know. And she goes, well, who's winning? And I went, yeah, I don't know that either. And she's like, did you just get here? I said, oh no, I've been here since the warm-ups. And she goes, is there a score? I'm like, oh, there's definitely a score, because there's been a lot of cheering. And she's like, are you not watching? And I stopped and I said, listen, I don't know how you're going to take this, but to me at this age, baseball is about playing baseball so you can play more baseball. Like you're just trying to fix something today, figure something out, get better so that you can keep playing tomorrow. Like playing baseball is about getting to continue to play baseball. It's not about winning this game. I said, I would love it if they win, don't get me wrong, but I don't care if they win. And I don't care if my kids, you know, it sounds trite to say, I don't care if he's 0 for 4, I don't care if he's 4 for 4. There are little things he's trying to accomplish today, and he needs this game to work them out. You know, and I try to tell people, I wonder now as I'm kind of dissecting this and why I was excited to have you on, like when I talk about diabetes with people, I always tell them there's no mistakes. Like you can't make a mistake in diabetes. You can have an experience that doesn't go the way you wanted, but you need to learn something from it so that tomorrow's better. The only real mistake you can make, Drew, is that if you do something today with your blood sugar, it doesn't go the way you want, and instead of trying to learn from it, you spend time being upset about it. If you do that was a mistake. You know, don't give away this data. Don't give away today's practice. Don't ignore what you are learning because you want to be upset or dramatic or sad.
Yeah.
You know? So,
perspective is everything. I mean, control what you can control, and then, you know, I've always tried to have a positive outlook on whatever, but man, there's always challenging times in anything.
Yeah.
And that, you know, there's always negative impacts, but it's just what you do with that going forward.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so your story, and really guys who play in general, if you're still listening, you know, with people who are listening who have diabetes, who maybe have never played baseball, like try to imagine starting something when you're 6 years old that doesn't begin to really pay off until you're a junior in college. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not that you didn't have good times and, you know, enjoy what you were doing in the interim, but you didn't get to like hold your fist up in the air and be like, I'm really good at this for that amount of time. And to have to make a decision to have been great at football and just have to look back and go, look, I don't think my body can handle this. So I'm going to have to adjust. You know, that must have been fairly, especially being from Texas, right? Like football is life, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's just funny how life goes. I mean, the way I felt God directed my life, and you know, I didn't have any scholarship offers to play football. I had a lot of walk-on offers to Baylor, SMU, even Boston College. But then when I took my recruiting trip to Dallas Baptist, I was like, it's a mid-major team that plays Division I baseball, plays the best competition in the country, and just a place where I knew I could grow and develop. And I just felt led to go to. It was just a no-brainer for my family and I.
So when it felt right, it felt right. You didn't struggle in that moment to leave something else behind because you knew you were heading in the right direction.
Man, it was crazy. Like, I think it was a month before school of 2003 or 2002 after I graduated. So a month before, like, you check into college. Like, I didn't have anywhere to go. I signed on in a junior college. I still was thinking I may go walk on and play football. But then, like a month before, I went to Dallas Baptist. I was like, all right, this is it. And then driving home, called the coach back. All right, I'm coming to Dallas Baptist. And there it was. A month later, I showed up on campus, you know?
I have to say that probably 5 visits into my son's like recruiting visits, you know, the kids, they bring the kids in, the coach smiles, he goes, oh, we'll take him to class and it's going to be great. I'm like, yeah, just try not to kill him. Like, I'm, you know, pretty sure I know what's going to happen when I walk away from here. But my son is not a drinker, for instance. So at all of his visits, he was looking for a place where he could not drink and people wouldn't kill him over it. You know what I mean? Like, so that was like one of the things he was looking for. He was looking for academics. He was looking for a place where he thought there weren't too many older guys standing between him and the field. Like, he was trying to assess all this. You go to all these, like, these overnights, and he'd come home and he'd be like, this place was okay. I like this one. This one was fine. The coach was nice, but I didn't like the school. It was back and forth. He walked out of a building after the overnight where he's at, and he just looks at me. He goes, we can cancel the rest of them. I'm going to come here.
That's awesome.
And I was like, okay, are you sure you don't want to go to the rest of them? He goes, there's no need. He's like, I'm going to come here. And I was like, that's great, man. Like, but honestly, Joe, I was getting tired of driving to all those schools now. So I drug my ass to Boston 3 times during that recruiting thing. And, oh my God, what a terrible drive. But anyway, it hit him so, I don't know. He just said, he's like, I like the size of the school. I like the coaches. The guys are good. He's like, no one, broke my balls last night about not drinking, not even like a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay. And even when he gets frustrated now about baseball, what he really talks about is like, I'm not learning anything because I'm not on the field enough. Like, I want, like, that's how he thinks about it. I've never been so focused about anything in my life. I'm in awe of people like you and Cole who can be so single-minded about something and at the same time be broad in their feelings. Like, that he's not just a baseball player, but when he's doing that, it's amazing the focus he has.
Yeah. Well,
good.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, congrats to him and to you for you guys to have the wisdom to find a great spot for him, and just because he knows he can develop, he probably got to play right away. And I mean, even in pro baseball, I played with guys that, one, they didn't play college. They got drafted out of high school. And then there's other guys that just played 1 year of junior college or, played at NAIA ball or Division III. It didn't matter. If you're a good player and you develop and just continue to get better, I mean, you'll still have those opportunities if time allows,
Yeah, it really is about that, about time too, because Cole was saying to me the other day, he's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, if I can keep playing after college, he goes, it doesn't matter where I play college. He's like, if I can do it, I can do it. And he's like, and if I can, I can. Sometimes where you end up in college is an indication of your skill or your body or anything like that. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just, I'm not in a rush. And you mentioned something earlier that happened to Cole, is that he's a late bloomer too. Like, he's always been, imagine you start playing when you're 4, you're already a year younger than everybody else. And that starts to catch up to you as you get older. When the kids who turn into 20-year-old men when they're 16 are 16 and you're 15 and not going to turn into a 20-year-old guy till you're 21, you know what I mean? Like, you're in that space. Like, those guys you're talking about who don't play ball in college, they're grown men when they're 18 years old. Use Bryce Harper as an example. He was walking around like a grown man when he was 17. So, that's just luck or random or, whatever it ends up being. But sometimes you just got to grow into your skill too.
I agree.
Try a pod for free to experience how liberating the Omnipod truly can be. If you're considering insulin pump therapy, the best way to understand the comfort and convenience that the Omnipod offers is to try it firsthand. So get a free experience kit, which includes a sample non-functioning pod, and see what you think. There's absolutely no obligation to buy. You can wear a non-functioning pod to see how it feels, find the area that works best for you, and feel the freedom you could have with the Omnipod system. Did you know that 95% of podders surveyed by Omnipod said they trust the Omnipod system to manage their diabetes? And 88% of them said the Omnipod system makes living with diabetes easier. Well, guess what? I 1,000,000% agree. That's right. If you go to myomnipod.com/juicebox and get started today by having Omnipod send you a free, no obligation demo of their wonderful, most excellentest insulin pump in the world, tubeless insulin pump, by the way. Did you know that? Of course you did, but now you know for sure because I told you just now with my words. Tubeless insulin pump. We're talking about absolutely no tubing. I know right now you're thinking, insulin pump? Ew. Put a thing on, long tube. No long tube. Oh, and then they'll have to hang something on my belt. No. That's not how Omnipod works. Omnipod is self-contained. It's magical. It's the future. But now, It's like going into the future, getting something, and bringing it back to today. Listen, Omnipod doesn't want you to know that they broke the space-time continuum, but they did. They went into the future, they got an insulin pump, they brought it back to 19, whatever this year is now. I'm guessing now that I said 19, it's more like 2019. But anyway, myomnipod.com/juicebox, or the links in your show notes, or at juiceboxpodcast.com. Would you say that even though you're competitive and you don't want that number to climb over a certain spot, that when it does, I mean, what do you do when it does? How do you react?
Oh, I mean, yeah, like I said, I can only control from that moment on. So, let's just say my blood sugar was 200 or even 250. All right, well, let's assess the situation. How much insulin do I have on board? Do I need to give more insulin to get down? And it's usually, yes, give more insulin if you're 250, and then hopefully in 45 minutes, that insulin will kick in and you can start feeling better and the insulin will start to go down.
What's it feel like when you're 200?
200, I don't really feel a difference. I think even recently, like I've had a lot more better control because of the G6, just always seeing, but even so, I'd say when I get to 250 is when I start to feel like I haven't been 300 only but one time in the last probably 3 months. But when I was, man, I felt like complete trash. I had to lay down. I was like dizzy. And I used to be 300 all the time, honestly, but I think your body just adjusts to the different levels. But yeah, when I was 300, it was probably last week, man, I had to lay down, give insulin. And it just takes so much longer for that insulin to work too once you get that high.
Yeah, I just can't, I can't stress enough. Like for you, I mean, I don't know, where does your CGM tell you, where do you get an alarm for a high blood sugar? What level?
180.
180.
And then I get an alert at 75 when I'm trending
lower. And so what we do here is my alert on my phone is at 120. And on my daughter's is 130. The idea that I kind of go with is that if you find out earlier, then you can correct with less insulin. When you correct with less insulin, you're less likely to get low later. And if you slowing a high, stopping a high before it comes, then keeps you in a space where you're not insulin resistant too. Because by the time you get to 180, getting from 180 to 100 might not be an apples to apples comparison to insulin, like getting from 120 to 90. So, say you need to move 30 points and whatever that amount of insulin is, once you're over, once you start getting higher, it doesn't just double. It doesn't say, well, I need to go down 60 points. So it's just double that. It doesn't always go that way, but people feel that way. Like, well, if it takes me this much to move 30 points, it'll take me the double that to move 60, which stops being true. So I like to bump the blood sugars. I like when they try to get higher, you bump them back. And what you find is that up front, it's a little more work, but eventually you end up making decisions that you don't even realize throughout the day that keep you from ever really being above 130. It's fascinating how you sort of get what you expect at some point.
No, I agree. I think I'm going to have to look at lowering my little range then.
Dexcom put out we actually did an episode about it a couple of years ago. They backed a study that just says the lower you make that high alarm, the lower your A1C will be. That's it. That's what happens. The sooner you react, the better off.
Yeah, no, I agree. And probably more alarms you're going to get too, though.
Well, so now in the beginning, Drew, in the beginning, yes, but eventually no. Because what you'll figure out at some point is if you keep drifting up like that, that's your basal insulin. So you'll change your basal, and then you won't start drifting up anymore. You'll actually end up bolusing less once you figure out why it is you're going over that 120, 130 range to begin with. It's fascinating. I know way too much about this now.
Oh, it is. I mean, I look forward to seeing a baseball game with you, but I mean, and we can talk more, but it's just crazy. Like, I've had diabetes for almost 33 years.
Yeah.
And, I would just say the last 5 to 6 years, I've actually started to really grasp how everything affects me.
Mm-hmm.
For the first 25 years, I just lived by the roller coaster,
Yeah. just trying to be okay so you could play and do the things you wanted to do.
Yeah, but technology now has been so helpful.
At school, did a trainer help you during games?
Yeah, but I mean, even to that point, they did. They always had food. They always knew, like, if I started to do some weird things, like, hey, Drew, let's go check your blood sugar. Here's some food, you know?
Right.
And, but even that, like, it was so taboo. They didn't really know. Nobody really experienced it as I was growing up. I mean, I never had a teammate that had diabetes. There was one guy in Austin that was an athlete and still a friend of mine, but that's the only guy I remember that ever had type 1 diabetes when I was growing up.
You know, I don't know if you know the name, but Molly Fichtner's been on the podcast, and she's a friend of mine. She was she's a catcher for Alabama when they went as far as they've ever gone a few years ago. And she's the head coach. She's a head coach at University of Louisiana now. But she would say that, like, you know, they would just take care of her. And I always wondered, like, did she just, like, accept that was okay? Or, like, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, they have it. Because, you know, you get in that situation where, like, you know, when you're a student, you think one way. When you're a parent, you think another way. Like, my son's like, oh, the trainer's here. I'm like, who's the trainer? Like, don't just assume he knows what he's doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you have that kind of feeling. And do you know Sam Fold? Sam played in the league for about a decade. He's a manager with the Phillies now, or a coach with the Phillies now.
I've never spoke with Sam, but we have a good mutual friend in Ben Zobrist, and we've talked about each other with Ben.
Yeah. So Sam's been on the show. He's actually coming back on pretty soon. I was talking to him the other day, but he told me when I interviewed him the first time, he's like, you go back and watch me playing baseball. He goes, if I'm chewing gum in the outfield, he's like, I was getting low. He's like, you know, he's like, that was the extent of his management back then. Like, I don't feel okay. I'm going to be stuck out here a little longer, handful of bubble gum. And I was like, wow, you're lucky you're alive.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, let me tell you this one quick story.
Yeah.
I've had severe lows, obviously, throughout, but the one I really remember was I was in a home run derby in high school, and I was one of the better hitters, so I was expected to hit a lot of home runs, and my blood sugar was so extremely low. The coach threw me 5 pitches. I missed all 5 of them, which BP, you know, it's pretty easy for at least me to hit the ball, but I missed all 5 of them. My dad comes down from the stands and he's like, Drew, come here. Let's check your blood sugar, you know, whatever I was, 40, 50. I just couldn't see. And it didn't always happen that way, but I had no depth perception. So that's why baseball is even harder if you're high or low, because your vision's affected.
Yeah.
So
it's frightening. I mean, how quickly your body just leaves you. You know what I mean? Your ability to hold yourself up, to think, to see, to make sense of things. Like, once, you know, we talk about it here once in a while, but that there's a level of sugar that needs to exist in your blood for your brain to function. And when you start getting below that, that's, you know, your brain can't work without a certain amount of sugar. And you know, and man-made insulin doesn't know to stop taking it out of your blood. If it's in there, it's going to do what it's going to do.
Correct.
Arden was playing once in Arden basically played up till like the end of Little League and a little more after that, and she's hurt right now, so she hasn't played in about a half a year. And there's part of me that thinks she's never going to play again. Like, she's just like, okay, well, we did that. But she's interesting. She doesn't love it like my son does, but she's good at it. So, like, they were playing, you know, right up to like going to the Little League World Series the last time, you know, she was really playing. But a number of years before that, as they're, you know, teaching those kids how to play on 95-degree days 3 times because it's softball. She came through the dugout one time. She played third base. She came through the dugout. She looked at me. She raised her glove up over her head and she goes, "I'm not okay." And I was like, what? And so, you know, it was back in the days of like older glucose monitors. They didn't work quite as well as they do today. And she was, sure enough, by the time I figured out and what was going on, that the monitor did tell me she was really low. But she got incredibly low, like in the 40s, and took in a bunch of, you know, liquid, a bunch of sugar. She sat on the bench, like put her head on my lap. Like, I sat in the dugout, like trying to get her back together. And she didn't have to bat that innings, but then she missed going in the field the following inning, but her bat came up after that. And she was still only like 65 and still coming back up. And she's like, I'm gonna hit. I was like, maybe not. She goes, if I don't hit, he's gonna take me out. I'm gonna feel better 5 minutes from now. I'm not gonna be able to go back in. And I was like, all right, why are my kids so competitive? And I was like, okay. And she got out there, she hacked away, she fouled off a bunch of them. And eventually she did, I think, pop up or something. But I couldn't believe she did that. Like when I look back on it, I'm like, how did you even go out there and like find that ball once? You know what I mean? And it's just it wrecked her. It wrecked her for 10 minutes. Like if she was by herself, I don't know what she would have done. Like in that moment, like she was just not capable of doing anything you think of as a human, function. It really is. It can be incredibly frightening, which is another reason why these tools are they're so amazing, and not just for helping you keep a high blood sugar down, but for just day-to-day stuff.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that diabetes can seriously just, if you have those extreme lows, it takes control of your body, and people don't understand that. Like, thank God I have kind of a happy personality, and I love to laugh. But like, so traditionally when I get low, I'll just get real giggly and real strange and just say weird things. And so my wife is always able to usually say, hey, before this is before the CGM, but she's always able to, like, look, go check yourself, get some food,
Drew's telling fart jokes. His blood sugar might be
low. Yeah. It's just strange how everybody's different, right? Diabetes affects me different than it does Arden,
Of course. That's crazy. Do you have children of your own?
Yes, sir. I have a 6-year-old daughter. Her name's Lila, and my son, his name is Pierce. He's 3 years old.
That kid better go play baseball or he's going to be in trouble.
He's a little tank. I hope he does love something.
Yeah. It's funny. I always thought that was more than a joke. Like, oh, you should, if I love this, I want my kids to love that. I realized once I had kids, I didn't care what they liked as long as it was something they liked.
I agree.
Yeah. I used to say to my son, as much as it looked like we were going to get some money for college and he was going to have fun, as it got more and more serious, I'd remind him every spring, like, you don't need to do this. If you want to, I'm down. Like, we'll do whatever it is that it takes. I'm like, but if you don't want to, don't feel like you're doing this for me or for you need to want this for yourself, because I just think it could be dangerous to get caught in a situation where your children start feeling like they'd be letting you down if you didn't do that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
My daughter said, one of her best moments was going into the high school and telling the coach, look, I'm hurt. I'm not playing. She's like, I'll see what I can do and maybe I'll come back next year, but for now I'm not playing. The woman's like, oh, we still want you on the team. And my daughter goes, I am not showing up every day and going to practice to watch other kids play softball. she's like, I could do my homework. Hell, I could take a nap, but I'm not good. But I can't do that. Like, there's a mindset around that whatever it is, but I think we've given our kids so much freedom that they don't feel pressure to do things like that.
That's good.
Yeah, so I was really proud of her. I was like, cool. I said, the woman even said, do you want to be the manager? And my daughter comes home. I wish people knew Arden better. Like, she's so, she can be so sarcastic. And she was like, the manager. She's like, I play. I don't write down the score. And I was like, right. And she goes, even if I never play again, I don't even, this is an interesting question for you. My son wants to do nothing but play baseball. But while he's playing, he doesn't want to go see a baseball game. Like, he's like, I don't want to go watch guys play. I want to play. And like when it's, when he's not playing, he's happy to go to a game. He loves going to a game. But when he's playing, he I don't know. It's like he does not want to watch someone else do something that he wants to be doing. Is it hard for you to watch ball now that you don't play anymore?
No, I mean, I really find common ground with Cole in saying that. I mean, growing up, I never really even watched baseball, honestly, ever.
Yeah.
Now I watch some of my old teammates still, and I do love to go watch games now, but I'm so far removed. I love to get back and just experience the environment again. But yeah, when I played, I didn't really
somebody else do it, right?
Yeah.
I tried. We were just down in this spring break in Florida, and I said, hey, we could head over to the Phillies are playing the Yankees today. We could take a ride over to Tampa. And he's like, I've been playing all week. And I was like, all right. He's like, I don't want to drive 45 minutes to go watch other people play baseball. I was like, right, all right, man, we'll do something else. But yeah, it's a very interesting mindset. Like you said, I
think in anything in life, you have to have some kind of outlet. If you're playing baseball 6 days a week, that seventh day, you don't really want to go be mentally in baseball again, you know?
You know, it's funny as you say that, people ask me all the time, like, you know, seriously, other than yours, like, what other diabetes podcasts do you like? And I was like, I don't listen to other diabetes podcasts. I'm like, I'm busy making a podcast. Like, I can't, to your point, like, I can't spend the 5 free minutes I have, like, listening to someone else do it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I guess maybe it's a very similar thing. Okay, so, Drew, so you're playing college. What year do you when you do get drafted? What year do you get drafted? Are you in school still?
So I graduated in 2006. I got in May of 2006. Got drafted June of 2006. So I signed as a senior with the Astros in the 16th round. I had a neat experience. The 2 weeks before the draft, the Astros wanted me to come down to Minute Maid in Houston and do a tryout. And man, I played lights out. You know, I was slotted to get drafted, but nobody really knew where. But I just played. I had a lights out tryout. I took one of Craig Biggio's bats in the cages from under and hit with that. I was like, man, Major League Baseball wood is so much better than any wood I've ever swung with baseball wise. And I hit some homers in batting practice. I threw well from the outfield. You know, made some diving catches, and I mean, I impressed them a little bit because they drafted me and took a chance, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool. Now, is it, I think if my son got drafted and then spent the rest, played one day, they said, oh, I can't believe we drafted you. It was a huge mistake. And he spent the rest of his life homeless. He'd still be telling people, do you know I got drafted? And so is it about one of the greatest things that's ever happened to you?
Man, yeah, you know what? It was such a neat experience, and I'm so thankful it happened. I mean, it's not something I run around and tell everybody about. I mean, people probably look at me and like, he probably, you know, he never played sports or whatever, who knows? But if people ask, man, I'm first to say, yeah, I got to experience minor league baseball. And I remember that day that I got drafted, I was with my whole family at my grandparents' house, and I didn't get any phone calls, but you know, you're just kind of looking at the computer and you see all these names. One of my teammates got drafted 2 picks before me by the Phillies. And I was like, man, that's, you know, being competitive. I was like, dude, I'm better than him, you know? And then all of a sudden my name comes up and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know? And we all, you know, we're all kind of jumping around and excited. So yeah, it was a memorable experience for sure.
Yeah. It's, you know, after trying so hard at something like that, it's kind of amazing. How long did you play minor league ball?
So I played 1 season in New York in short season with the Astros, and then the next season after spring training got promoted to we call it low A or full season single A. Then after that season was over, got released a week before Thanksgiving, which was kind of strange. And then I played 2 more years of independent baseball in Grand Prairie for Pete Incaviglia. He was my manager.
Okay. Pete came up here. We're Phillies fans, so Pete played here for a while towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what ended up being the thing? Like when you look back, like what was the thing that had progressed as far as it was going to progress for you, and you just you didn't have it to go further than that? Like what stopped you?
Man, good question. I mean, a little bit of consistency probably. Mm-hmm. I was probably honestly 3rd or 4th outfielder on the team, you know, and a lot of things go into that, whether it be business or, you know, how much money somebody gets, signing bonus. I definitely had, you know, I think my minor league average was like 260 or something like that. So I wasn't, you know, I just didn't have that consistent. Every time I played, you could count on me to do something. Some games I'd be lights out. Some games, you know, I would go for 4. You know, it's
so incredibly funny you say this. This is a name you're not going to know because it's a New Jersey name, but it's a guy that lives in my town. He's, you know, older now, but he made it to the Orioles as a catcher. And I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, you know what killed me? He's like, there were some days there was nobody better. And he's like, and then the next day I was horrible. And he's like, and he used the word, he's like, I couldn't do it consistently. He's like, I just couldn't find the consistency. A friend of Cole's was drafted by the White Sox a number of years ago, and after 3 years he was home. Cole said to him, what happened? And he goes, mentally I couldn't, the hitting is just, it's so mental. And he's like, we'd get on the bus and we'd ride, you know, forever. And he's like, I was tired and I couldn't be consistent. And it's the same word that everybody uses. I'm so fascinated that you said the same thing. It was like, I can do it. I just couldn't do it every time. You know, or that other answer that you gave, which I don't think people think enough about, is if somebody got excited about another guy a little more excited than they got about you and gave him a little more money, even if you're better than him, they're going to hold on to him longer to try to be right. Right. Like there's that idea, like we paid this guy, like let's
it's
wait.
A business, right?
Yeah, right. Let's wait and see if we can get something out of him. The other guy, we didn't pay so much. We can let him go if we have to. Now, after you're out of the minors, can you talk about how that helps when you move into the business world? Is it a big deal? Like, do you go into a job interview? Does everybody turn into a little kid? They're like, "Oh my God, you played for the Astros!" Like, do you get offered jobs that you have no business having?
Man, I don't know. It definitely helps. It definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, most big companies and most business owners, they want competitive people that are going to go after something hard for them, so, and they know for the most part, athletes, they have discipline, they're competitive, and those are kind of the characteristics you want as an employee, so yeah, it definitely got me interviews. I mean, I started with Stryker, which is a medical device company right after I got done playing.
Okay.
But I started in a warehouse, so it wasn't like I didn't get like an amazing job.
Right.
I had to work the same thing. I had to work myself up the way up in the organization,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely feel that. Again, there's this one guy that told me a story one time, and he was just like, I was in this interview, and he's like, in 5 minutes, I realized, like, I don't know this isn't a good job for me. It's not a good fit. And he's like, and the job was, it was important. He goes, it would have been dangerous to give me this job. And I was like, right. He goes, for 45 minutes, guys were like, tell me about playing baseball. And then in the last 15 minutes, they're like, well, we love you. And he was like, I shouldn't have this job. He goes, everybody in the room just turned into like little kids. And I was like, that's very funny. Even my neighbor used to throw BP for the Mets in the 80s. That helps him at work. It's crazy. Like, guys.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, guys turn into little boys, when they talk about baseball. And probably rightfully so, by the way. Baseball's
any sports, right? I mean, I'd say traditionally baseball is such a fraternity. If you played baseball and you, even at a high level, you know a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
And, it's fun to talk about. And same with football. I mean, that's why, like you said, athletes are, a rare commodity, I guess, in the business marketplace.
Yeah. It really is interesting to, watch my son talk about, I mean, in this semester, Cole's taking multivariable calculus, some high level Spanish thing, and he doesn't even speak Spanish that well, and still getting great grades, still goes and lifts, I don't know how often they lift. They must lift 4 times a week at least. They're playing 3 or 4 times a week at this point, and they still practice on their off days. And when I talk to him, like, how you doing? He goes, I'm good. I'm like, all right, because I'd be dead. I'd fall over. But he's like, I'm a little tired, but I'm okay. And I'm like, I'm okay, man. Like, go get him. Like, I don't know what that is. That's a switch. That's a gear not everybody gets, So it is amazing to see how much work gets put into it. But
well, you don't know any different either. I mean, you're just kind of, it's almost like your cattle. You're just kind of, your coaches tell you what to do and you say, yes, sir, and do it, and you're like, okay, now I got to go study. Now I got to get some sleep, and it starts all over. And,
right.
But you don't know any different, and you love it.
Yeah. And that really is the key, man. He really does love it. He said, what are you going to do this summer? He goes, I'm going to try to get bigger. And I was like, that's the summer plan? He goes, yep. Okay, man. I was like,
yep.
You go get bigger. I don't know what to, go get him, kid. I wish, Drew, I wish you could see me. I'm just not, like, you would not look at me and go, I bet that guy's got athletic children. I can't tell you. My wife says to me all the time, she goes, we sit at a softball game, and someone comes up to me like I've never met before. She goes, they point to the chubbiest kid on the field, and they go, is that your daughter? And my wife's like, no, my daughter's the, like, that one there, pointing to, like, this, like, lean, like, tone, athletic kid. And they always go, oh, yeah. And I was like, I said, Kelly, I said, every baseball every baseball field I've ever been at, somebody's like, "Is the catcher your son?" I'm like, "No, it's not the catcher. It's the kid in center field." And they're like, "Oh, really?" And then they look at me. I can see. I'm going to tell you guys, everyone's going to get to hear a really embarrassing story, right? So my son's in, I don't know, he's playing baseball somewhere. And I'm watching him practice one night. Ball goes out into a parking lot. I'm like, okay, it's probably my turn to go get the foul ball. So I get up and I walk and I get it. And I'm coming back to the field. And I see a coach standing by second base. He's by the bucket at second. So I just, I've got the ball in my hand. I gesture, I've got the ball, and I'm going to throw it to him. And he starts running towards me. And I was like, what is happening? And so I put my hand up like, no, I don't want you to come over here. I have the ball. I thought he didn't realize I tried to throw him the ball. So I was like, that's enough of this. I just threw the ball. And later it hit me, after the practice, and we're standing off to the side. I said, Joe, can I ask you a question? He goes, yeah. I said, when I showed you the ball, you knew I had the ball, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I said, why'd you run towards me? And he goes, well, I didn't think you could reach me. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I get that, but did you think the kid just figured it out all by himself? Like he just came crawling out of the womb with a baseball in his hand? I was like, someone showed it to him. It wasn't my wife, and so yeah. I just don't look like that guy.
Yeah, I'd call you a closet athlete. You may not look like you're an athlete, but I'm sure you can move and you can do certain things.
I always tell people I'm faster than I look. I can throw this ball farther than you think I can. And, I'm much better than you would imagine right up until I'm not. But Mike, listen, in fairness, Cole was a better baseball player than I've ever been by the time he was 12, to be perfectly honest. He just got better and better and better as he went. So I want to ask you, you said, so Ben, and so Sam through Ben, but Ben doesn't have diabetes, does he?
No, but he was my teammate at Dallas Baptist.
That's how you know him. Have you ever done Sam's wiffle ball? The T1D Slam, his wiffle ball games?
I haven't.
Sam runs these cool wiffle ball games to raise money for diabetes charities.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to reach out to Sam and see if we can be a part of what's going on.
He got thrown around a little bit as the Rangers manager in the offseason.
I didn't know that.
His name came up a couple times. And I was like, I texted him. I was like, hey, do I know the next manager of the Rangers? It's like, that sounds pretty exciting. He's got, I'm going to have him on because Sam has a job that is completely unique in Major League Baseball. I believe he's the only one who has it. But he's the liaison between the statistics department upstairs and the players.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? He kind of takes the math of baseball and translates it into baseball. Like he's it's just a very interesting job he has.
Like sabermetric stuff?
Yeah. He takes the sabermetric stuff and he's a Stanford. He went to Stanford. He has an econ degree from Stanford. So he played a decade. He went to Stanford. I got to imagine he knew something if he got through there.
Sure.
Right. Sure. And so he takes the sabermetric stuff and then he goes to you as the player and puts it into baseball terminology for you.
Wow.
Such a cool job,
That is cool. I never heard of that.
And he's the only one in the league that has that job. So I think that's new for the Phillies. Started that last year, and I don't know if other people will, you know how people, once they see something working, they'll climb on board.
Oh, yeah. It'll go in cycles for sure. Yeah. They're going to follow that.
Yeah, and the Phillies right now, I think, are going to use the sabermetrics of let Real Muto, Harper, and McCutchen hit that baseball. So I don't know if they're going to need numbers for that exactly, but we took a big leap. Who do you root for when you're watching baseball now?
Team-wise, I'm local. I definitely root for the Rangers, but, also root for the Cubs because of Zobrist. I think he's the only teammate I still have left playing. I mean, he's played 14 years in the majors, or maybe whatever it is, 12 years probably.
He had a long career. He really does. He's starting to talk about maybe this is it this year, right? Have you heard him say that?
I mean, I have just over the radio and, on TV, but he's just a good dude, man. He's a great leader, and people love having him in the clubhouse. He puts other people before himself, and I'm proud to call him a teammate for sure.
That's amazing. And there's different ways to lead too. Like there's some guys who are yelling and screaming and jumping around. And my son actually said to me the other day, he goes, "I think I'm having a good impact on the team." And I said, "Why?" And he just talked about some of his workout stuff that he does. He's like, "When I got there, I was doing some stuff and people were like, what are you doing? Like they were a little like, I've never seen anybody do that before. And Cole's like, now I'm starting to see some guys are like, you know, breaking off a piece of the field on their own and they're doing some stuff. And I'm starting to see them do some of the stuff. I was just like, I feel like I'm having a good just impact on people. And I wish you knew him better. Like I never imagined that would have been something he would have said to me, you know? So
yeah,
it's very cool. This process of getting to play sports in college is, I definitely think it's an experience that'll feed him through his whole life. So,
yeah. And I think that's why, you know, we all feel successful when we're helping others, myself included. I mean, there's been times in my life when I've been self-focused, but, you know, when I'm focusing on others, you know, I'm usually more fulfilled. You know, I think that's what excited me to reach out to you and just say, hey, if there's anything that I can do to encourage people, man, let me know, you know?
Well, I think you did it, just sharing your story and you know, talking. I agree with you too. I'm, you know, you've mentioned your faith a couple of times. I'm not a particularly religious person, and yet I will tell you that when I do this podcast and I hear back from people that it's helped them, I don't have a better feeling all day than that. That's for sure. So I feel exactly the same way, coming at it from probably a different angle than you, but at the same way, the result's exactly the same. Like when you're helping other people and kind of relieving their burden a little bit, it's incredibly rewarding. So
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Scott, it was a pleasure. Let me know if you're in Dallas, or if I get up north, man, we'll go see a baseball game.
That'd be amazing. Thanks to Drew for coming on the show and sharing his story. Thanks to Omnipod, Dexcom, and Dancing for Diabetes for being sponsors. Don't forget that you can go to dancing4diabetes.com to get tickets to the big show at the Bob Carr Theater coming up on November 9th. You can go to myomnipod.com/juicebox to get a free, no-obligation demo of the Omnipod sent directly to your home. And, of course, at dexcom.com/juicebox, you can get started today with the G6 continuous glucose monitor that Arden uses. Good. It's over now. You go to do your thing. Another podcast, maybe from the Juicebox Podcast. Tell a friend about it. I mean, I guess you could listen to a different podcast as long as it's not about diabetes. I don't need the competition.